Hi, and welcome to Flying Tips. Today we're looking at how to calculate actual winds while en route. How many times on a cross-country nav have you diligently maintained heading, regularly checked for precession, and still found yourself off course? Well, assuming you've done everything else correctly, there's a good chance that's because the actual winds are different to the forecast winds you used in preparing your flight plan. I'm going to show you how in a few simple steps we can calculate the actual winds while en route. We can then use the new winds to adjust our flight plan to maintain the correct track. The whiz wheel I'll be using for today's exercise is a Jeppesen circular flight computer. To find our actual winds en route, we require four things: our true airspeed, our ground speed, our heading, and our track made good. In other words, we compare what we've maintained with what we've achieved. We then use our whiz wheel to calculate actual winds. Let's look at an example. Let's say we're flying from Albany in the south to Katanning in the north. That's a track of 356 degrees magnetic. We'll assume that our aircraft has is 125 knots, and today the forecast is for nil winds. So our heading for today's flight is 356 degrees magnetic. When we departed, we noted the time was 15:30 hours. At 15:48, we fixed our position at Cranbrook. With a quick measure, we can see that we've travelled 41 nautical miles and we're 9 nautical miles left of track. Referring to our whiz wheel, we can see that 41 miles in 18 minutes means our ground speed is 137 knots. And using the 1 in 60 rule, we can calculate that our track error is 13 degrees left. Since our heading is 356 degrees, our track made good is 343 degrees. So now we have our true airspeed, ground speed, heading, and track made good, we can calculate actual winds. Step 1. Set the TAS marker on our true airspeed of 125 knots. Step 2. Refer to the black strip left of the TAS marker to calculate our effective true airspeed. This step is only required if our track error is more than 10 degrees. In today's exercise, our track error is 13 degrees, so reading off the black strip next to the TAS marker, we can see our effective true airspeed is 122 knots. Step 3. Set the track made good of 343 degrees on the true course marker. Step 4. Enter our headwind or tailwind component on the wind calculator. Our effective true airspeed is 122 knots and our ground speed is 137 knots, so we have a tailwind of 15 knots. Step 5. Now we find our crosswind component. By referring to the crosswind scale, the middle disc on our whiz wheel, we can see that our track error of 13 degrees gives us a crosswind of 28 knots. As our track error was to the left, our crosswind must be from the right. Mark the crosswind at 28 knots on the wind calculator, and we can see that our actual winds are approximately 100 degrees magnetic at 31 knots. With our actual winds calculated, we can now update our flight plan.